Good evening, folks. This is BelGeode, and this is a chill video. What is a chill video? Well, a chill video is very low production value, so no fancy theme song, no rolling credits, or any of that kind of stuff. Just basically me and whatever aircraft it is I'm flying, and we're just going to talk. And I even have a more relaxed feel when it comes to this. All right, so what are we showing off? I'm sure you can see this. This is the RotorSimPilot version of the R44 Raven 2, the Robinson R44, a staple in the area which we're going to fly tonight. We are home. What is home? Well, home is Pittsburgh, PA. Or more to the point, we are just south of Pittsburgh, PA. We're actually in a little place called Findlayville, where they happen to have, I guess, like the best way to describe this is a community airport. It's a really small airport. Um, it's decently modeled for Microsoft Flight Sim. It is default, of course. Some things they did get wrong. For example, see those buildings there? Those are supposed to be hangars. They have them listed as just generic buildings or houses and so on and so forth. There are, of course, some hangars here. These are also supposed to be hangars, but whatevs. All right, so the reason why we're here, this is my home area, so I kind of want to show it off. And I got a couple of things that I want to show you. One of which is going to be the Payware forestry mod that I got. Basically, it replaces all of your default trees. So it has more natural trees, and it also has seasons associated with it. The links to everything will be in the video description, as always. That hasn't changed. But I've basically put in the autumn colors. So we're going to be taking a look at some autumn colored trees. Now, as a disclaimer, this is mid-September that I'm doing this little chill video here. So right now, my trees do not look like this in real life, but give it a couple of weeks and this will pretty much be exactly what everything looks like here in southwestern Pennsylvania. All right, so as you can see, I've got Kara inside. Kara is, of course, my trusty female co-pilot that handles all of my comms. And she is in the left seat. Normally she's in the right seat, but then normally we're also flying fixed wing aircraft. So would make sense, right? We're in a helicopter. I'm supposed to be in the right seat as pilot in command. And this person here, well, we really don't have much of a use for you, do we? So take 5. Go get a Coke or something. All right, so we are going to hop into the Robbie and we're going to fly around the Pittsburgh area. I'll show you some of the significant sites around here. I do have photogrammetry turned on, and this is important for you to note because you may notice that the FPS kind of lags a little. That is one of the unfortunate side effects with photogrammetry in this sim. I don't feel it is nearly as optimized as it could be. So as a result, it does tend to drop my FPS a little in VR. If I were not in VR, I'm sure I probably wouldn't have an issue, but as you know, if you're watching this channel, everything I do is in VR, except of course like Arma 3, but that's about to change too. We'll get into that another time. All right, so first thing about this Robbie. As I stated, it is by RotorSimPilot. You can see he's got help. Andreas R, I believe, does the texturing. There's currently only one default texture included with the standard British registration number there. You can see it starts with a G. And you'll also notice 2 other logos. So there's Airland FS, which is Fred Nar. Fred Nar is, of course, famous for HTR, or Helicopter Total Realism, which was what we used to use back in FSX and in some cases P3D to make FSX helicopters fly more realistic. And it was phenomenal then. It is phenomenal now. It's now called Airland FS, and it is what is going to be used for most helicopters that come to Microsoft Flight Simulator. That is at least until Asobo gets their act together and decides to bring helicopters. We don't know how they're going to pull it off just yet, but hopefully they will talk to Fred and get some pointers because Fred knows his helicopters. Airline FS, even though it is an external app, it's a very small external app that runs alongside your Microsoft Flight Simulator. Without it, this puppy can't fly. So it is necessary and it is very much worth it. I love what they have done to basically convert over what was being done for Helicopter Total Realism to this sim. And of course, the third logo you'll recognize is HeliSimmer, my good buddy Sergio Costa from helisimmer.com. Of course, he's got to have his stamp on everything because he is the Helico Mafia, as I'm calling him. So yeah, he's going to make Asobo an offer that they can't refuse, or something like that. All right, so normally we would hop in the cockpit, but I'm going to set up my camera a little further back here so that way we can reference it when we are flying. And we're going to go to the regular static cameras because there's a couple of things I want to talk about here that hopefully the developer will see and take into consideration. So we're going to go to this view. All right, so this is our first static external camera. Now, I like this. I like having a tail cam. I feel like it could be a little bit further back and probably a little bit below, so it's not like right above the rotor. That gets a little bit disconcerting when you've got the rotor spinning inches in front of your face in VR. For those of you not in VR, it's not going to matter, but it's just one of those things that I like. But yes, I like this view. I just want it pushed back a little. Now we've got your standard side view, great for taking screenshots. May need to come back a little bit. I'm not sure how much of the helicopter you can actually see on screen, but yeah, we might want to push this back just a touch. And of course, there is for the opposite side. And same story, great for taking those cinematic screenshots. So always good to have something like this in your static camera lineup. And then there's my favorite, the infamous BelGeode landing cam, as I call it on several other aircraft. If you want to see what's going on down below, this is the camera to have. And it does come in handy if you're trying to land in tight spaces, although typically I will try to land from the inside. If I'm doing something cinematic, like flying low over the forest and so on, or over water for that matter, this is the camera that I'll typically have running. So we're going to end up on this camera eventually. And then we've got the oblique camera. Now the angle of this seems a little off. It's pointing more in that direction. You can see where my lens flare is. That's pretty much the center of the camera. It should be pointing more that direction. So that just needs to be rotated slightly. Cameras like this are a little disconcerting in VR because your point of view doesn't feel natural. If it were more like this, it would be a little bit better, but that's a minor complaint. That's just a personal preference thing. All right. And then we have this camera. I really don't see much of a point for this camera since we have the other one that looks this way. So this is kind of duplicated work here. Maybe we could make this a mirror image to the camera that we just showed you, except on this side. Now that would be cool. And then we've got these cameras. What to really say about the back-facing cameras? Personally, I don't like them. Why? Because if I'm flying and I happen to be in the outside view, I can't exactly see where I'm going, can I? Unless I do this, which involves me physically turning my head around almost 180 degrees. Yeah, don't like that. Typically, I try to avoid these kinds of cameras. And kind of the same for this. This is great for screenshots if you want to take a look at the tail rotor starting up and so on and so forth. I could see that. But other than that, it doesn't really have much of a value if you're flying. It's good for that cinematic angle if you want to, indicate to the viewer that you're about to start up. You would turn on your strobe and you see the little beacon light flashing and so on and so forth. So cinematically, yes. Flying, no. Now we've got another shot that appears to be closer in. Again, this seems like duplicated work. I would take this camera out. I don't really see much of a need for having this camera there. But some people might like it. And then there's this camera. What the heck happened here, RSP? What am I supposed to be looking at aside from the tarmac? The helicopter's back there. Not sure what's going on. See, now with a camera like this, what I would do is I would put this in front of the nose facing directly back. So that way you can see the pilot and the co-pilot, and incidentally, the pilot figure does not appear at all, just the co-pilot. So even when we're flying, it'll look like I'm in an empty seat. From the outside view, you really should have the pilot showing. But again, that's just me. But other than that, there is no purpose for this camera right now. And then we're back to this. So this is our default static camera. So I'm going to put it back to this one because, well, I love this one. But we're also going to put it back to the drone camera right now. The static cameras are important for almost everybody that does YouTube that wants to do something cinematic. So they are important to have. So I would encourage the developer to look into that. And actually, I'll go a step further. I'll help you with that. I am notorious for changing around camera views and sending them to the developers to incorporate. A lot of the times, developers do listen to me because, well, they know me. I realize this particular developer does not know much about me, but I'm pretty sure that both Fred and Sergio can vouch for me. So I may help you out with your external static cameras. Internal cameras are fine. And all the other extra doodad cameras that you've got in there, those are all fine. It's just the external ones that I have minor issues with. All right, but with all that having been said, let's finally hop into the helicopter. Okay, so we are on board. First thing I want to do is close the doors. I do notice that when you close one door, it closes the back door behind it. Personally, I would like to see that separated. I would like to have the capability of opening each door individually, but I realize this thing is only like 8% done. So something to add to the list, but not a very, very, very high priority. Now, we're going to go ahead and start up. And before I start up, I should tell the viewing audience that not everything's modeled. We have no throttle control, for example. If you notice on a collective, we're supposed to have a twist grip throttle that we turn in order to get ourselves up to flight idle. That is not currently modeled right now, but again, alpha. So we understand that. All right, I do have my fuel valve on. That's the red thing that you see down here. The off position would be vertically. So that's off, that's on. All right, but yeah, we're supposed to have a rotating throttle on this, as well as the governor switch. Governor switch is not implemented just yet, and the throttle is also not implemented. Incidentally, this little red button, you ever want to know what the red button does? When you push the button, it gets rid of your co-pilot. Bye, Kara. All right, we'll get Kara back. We like Kara. Hi, Kara. Okay, so she's back. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Need the battery on, so I have that on my Virtual throttle. So there we go. Battery and gen are both on. Technically, the gen should come on after you have the engine start, but mine seems to be linked together, so I'm okay with that. All right, let's get our strobe lights on. Strobe lights are this switch here. Nav lights is to the left of that. This is the gen, by the way, or alternator, and this is our battery. Okay, so we're pretty much ready for an engine start, and it is going to be loud. So if I suddenly have to start speaking louder, well, you know why. All right, but we'll turn the key, which is set to your magneto, your left magneto. And you'll also notice that it automatically pushed in the mixture knob. You will also notice that all of a sudden our RPMs are up in the green in the flight idle. So again, that's because we don't have a current throttle or collective, but or not collective, but governor. But remember, work in progress. It's an alpha. But we're pretty much flight ready right now. So let's go ahead and get our avionics on. Okay, we got a nifty little Garmin. This is cool For my personal use, I'm just going to use it as a moving map. I'm not really going to use it for anything else, especially navigation, because typically if I'm flying a helicopter like this virtually, I have no real-life helicopter experience, but virtually, if I'm flying a helicopter like this, I'm hand flying it. I'm not using an autopilot or anything like that, and I don't believe this helicopter has an autopilot anyway. All right, let's get our nav lights on. And we should also get our landing lights on, so let me do that. There we go, landing lights are now on. Alright, so I still have my old transponder code in, 7127. I'm sure that Kara will get us a new one once we take off. But yeah, we are pretty much ready to fly. Now, a quick note on the Airland app. It runs in the background, and you really don't need to do much to it. It'll automatically pull the profile that it needs for the helicopter that you're using. My suggestion would be make sure the sim is running and make sure you're loaded into the helicopter cold and dark before you actually start the Airland app. But it'll recognize the helicopter and it'll pull the right profile, and of course all your settings will be remembered. I currently have mine set to 100% realism. So anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Basically, the flight model is a bit more precise and a lot more squirrely, as you would expect in a Robbie. But Robbies, from what I hear, tend to be somewhat forgiving. As long as you're not like ham-handing her, you should be able to master this bird in no time. As far as the pedal and cyclic sensitivity, I have pedal sensitivity set to 0.5 because I do notice that I have to give a strong amount of left pedal. You can see me moving the anti-torque pedals right now. I find that 5% sensitivity, I don't have to move my feet as much to get that same effect. But I'm sure I'll be all over the sky. I'm not a professional pilot after all. But yeah, that's basically it. Pretty straightforward. Airland does all the work for you. You know, you just make sure you've got your settings and then minimize it. As long as Airland is running, your helicopter will fly. Now, one weird thing that I do notice, since I'm using the Virpil throttle and not an actual collective, I have to get my Virpil throttle up to about 85% throttle for this thing to get light on the skids. It will not take off at 85%. I actually have to bump it up higher, closer to like 90% before I'll have enough collective for me to take off. That's just a minor thing that I think can be solved if I change the curves in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but I would need to set up a whole new profile for that, so I'm not messing with that right now. Alright, we've yacked on enough, so let's see if we can take off. Kara, I'm going to need you to contact them and tell them that we are taking off. Which way are we facing? I think we're facing east because it is morning here. The sky is accurate. I was outside about 30 minutes ago before I started recording. That is pretty much what the sky looks like right now. Alright. Let's select runway for takeoff because I don't have confidence that it's going to give me the right runway. Runway 14 is what we want. And let's announce taxi.
Golf 05 traffic November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo is taxiing to runway 14.
Thank you, Kara. Runway 14 is back that way, pointing in this direction. So, start pulling collective up. Watch your manifold pressure. That's the bottom right gauge. You do not want it to go any higher than 25. I can tell you that putting a Virpil throttle up to 90% will get you about 25. 85% will get you about a little over 20. So right about there is 85%. You can see we're a little light on the skids. We can move the cyclic slightly. And I'm going to bump us up. Get a bit of left pedal going. Say goodbye to dude over there. And I'm going to bump it back down to 80% on the collective. Let's rotate ourselves around here. And I'm just all over the place, as always. Alright, I'm going to bring her down. go. All right, Tara, do your thing. Tell them we are departing straight out, please.
Golf 05 traffic November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo taking off runway 14 departing straight out.
Okay, so we don't need a back taxi, obviously, but you can see our windsock is a little askew, so we need to pay especially close attention to how much pedal action we're giving it on takeoff. Make sure there's no traffic coming. There is none. And I think I'm going to go to the outside view for this. We'll see how well I can take off that way. Alright, this is the view that I want. So here we go. Alright, nice takeoff. They did model the neighborhood correctly. That's pretty much what this neighborhood looks like.
Pittsburgh approach November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo is type 1 miles southeast of Golf 05 1,300 feet.
We'll wait for Kara to finish.
Flight following. November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo Pittsburgh approach. Squawk 4734. Squawk 4734 Alpha Golf Bravo. Alpha Golf Bravo radar contact 20 miles southeast of Golf 05 1,400 feet. Altimeter 30.06. Roger Alpha Golf Bravo.
Okay, so that has been taken care of, and we are going to head off in this direction towards our major highway, our major north to south highway in the Pittsburgh area, which is I-79. You can see it right there. Now we're going to hit up the river. That is the Monongahela River, one of the three rivers that meet in downtown Pittsburgh. We're going to follow that river to the north. You may notice a flashing airport beacon off in that direction. That is Rostraver. Typically I will use Rostraver as my starting area, but I decided to do Finleyville instead because it's a smaller little hole-in-the-wall airport. So there's I-79 heading south towards West Virginia. If we were to travel north on I-79, it will take us to Erie, PA. And then, of course, it'll merge with another highway that'll take us east into New York to places like Buffalo and Niagara Falls. But yes, this is the Mon. So we're going to follow the Mon, and that will lead us eventually to downtown Pittsburgh. Alright, as far as controls go, I'm not giving it much with the cyclic. I'm pretty much centered right now. I still have a little bit of left pedal because I want to kind of point us in the right direction. Our throttle, well, collective, but my physical throttle is currently at 85%. And as you can see, we are dropping in altitude, but we are gaining airspeed. So I'm giving it a little bit of right pedal right now. She handles pretty well. And like I said, there are a lot of Robinson R44s and the like around this neck of the woods. We have a business here called Pittsburgh Helis, which has been showing up with alarming frequency on my Facebook profile. I've never flown with them, but I'm seriously thinking once I get out of hermit mode and decide to actually leave the house, I may go for a flight with Pittsburgh Helis and see if the Robbie is really like this when flying, in real life that is. We do have a little bit of a breeze here, so yeah, that is causing me some drift. I'm actually going to drop our collective a bit, and hopefully we will also lose a little bit of altitude. There's a rail yard there. I'm familiar with this rail yard. I've seen this before. And there you can start to see the autumn trees that I was talking about. So that is, like I said, a payware add-on. You can get it on Sim Market, and it comes with all 4 seasons. Now you can't load in all 4 seasons at once. You have to pick which season you want. I figured since it's September, I would put in the autumn season pack, but I think it's pretty cool. I really, really like it. This is not a bad rendition of this plant that's over here. I mean, it's photogrammetry, so obviously it's not perfect, but it's kinda looks like that. Kinda. So we'll give them some props for attempting there. As we get closer to Pittsburgh, you're going to see more photogrammetry like that. Some of it is great. Some of it, not so much. But it is what it is, so we can work with it. Now, I am kind of leaning a little to the right, just to kind of make sure that I stay over the river. But all the things that generally are modeled with helicopters are present in this helicopter. So things like a translating tendency, which means the helicopter does tend to lean a little to one side. That is accurate, and that is modeled with Airland FS. Things like LTE, or a loss of tail rotor effectiveness, that too is modeled. In fact, the faster we go, the less effective our tail rotor is. The wind can also influence that. And you really don't want to have LTE if you got like strong winds and so on. That's bad. All right, here's our typical Asobo bridge in Pittsburgh. As you can see, you can't fly under it. I would love to see someone like Orbix, or anyone really that designs sceneries. I'd love to have them come up with a definitive Pittsburgh scenery, because we do have about 237 bridges in this area, and they're really cool to see. Each one is different, so that could be a unique challenge, scenery challenge if you will, for anybody who were to design the Pittsburgh area. So I would highly encourage developers out there, big or small, to look at checking out this area and trying to model it. I think you could do a phenomenal job with all the unique structures that we've got here. Alright, so we've got more industrial district coming up, and you know what, let's go back to the outside view. That'll give me a break on my voice and also show you some pretties. Alright, so we did slow down considerably. That's the only downside to doing those little cinematic moments outside, is I can't see my gauges. So I really have no idea what we're doing. But we are getting closer to downtown Pittsburgh, and you will see a really tall ATC over there. That is incorrect. That's supposed to be Allegheny Airport. Allegheny Airport does not have a really tall ATC tower. It's actually got a considerably shorter one. It's a vintage building, so to speak. It's a very unique styled building that is not properly modeled in Microsoft Flight Simulator. But overall, the little towns that are along the river, that's pretty accurately modeled. That's basically what they look like. There's a lot of little towns like this all along the Monongahela River, the Allegheny River, and of course the Ohio River, which is what the Mon and the Allegheny become once they hit downtown Pittsburgh. They become the Ohio River. And pretty much all along the Ohio River to the Mississippi, and then of course the Mississippi going south, you'll find towns like this that are just kind of nestled along the riverbank. While it is really cool and really picturesque, it is very bad if we have a flood, because as you can see, the elevation is not much higher than the river itself. That can create a problem, and actually it did create a problem a few years ago when we had Hurricane Ivan come through. Go figure, right? I originally come from Florida, and I moved to Pittsburgh basically to get away from hurricanes and so on, and sure enough, we had a hurricane hit Pittsburgh. And it was nasty, because my entire town, I was living in a place called Carnegie at the time, all of Carnegie flooded out. So the entire town was like under 8 foot of water. Thankfully, my house, the water stopped literally in my backyard. It never got any higher than my backyard, so my house was spared. Everybody else on that block had to drain out their basement, basically. Now, we did have a hurricane come through this year, like a couple of weeks ago, a few weeks ago, in fact. However, it didn't really affect us as badly. I did get some flooding in my basement, but it wasn't too bad. I no longer live in Carnegie. I now live in a place called Green Tree, which is up on a hill. So, again, I kind of lucked out. Even though we did get some drippy in the basement, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Alright, we should be getting considerably closer to downtown. I believe we need to pass Allegheny. Oh, we just did. You can see Allegheny on the GPS off to the left, the very far left. That's the blue icon. So as we get closer to Pittsburgh, I will start pointing out key areas. I will say I'm not very pleased right now with the FPS loss. I'm trying to mitigate it by turning some of my settings down, but photogrammetry just kills me every time. And the sad part is I need to have photogrammetry on to be able to show you some of the notable structures here in Pittsburgh. So it's a bit of a catch-22 for me. Of course, this is all stuff that I told the developers when I was in Seattle for the debut of Microsoft Flight Simulator. I like what they're trying to do with the photogrammetry, but I still think there's lots of room for improvement. You know how crazy I am. I love being able to go underneath bridges. Obviously, I can't, because it just looks like one solid sheet there. It looks more like a dam than a bridge. And why are there trees growing on that? That's a railway bridge. You know what? I'm not even going to ask. Not even going to ask. And this is actually a lock that is on the river, you know, to limit the water flow, prevent flooding in the downtown area, and so on and so forth. It is not that high. It is really not that high. It's actually the length, or the height, I guess, of the river itself. So definite areas of opportunity there. And actually, I don't see our amusement park. We've actually got an amusement park along this area called Kennywood. I don't believe we have passed it, or at least if we have, I don't see it. That's interesting. It should be right about here. We'll go a little further and see if it pops up. Once we get past that S-curve that you're looking at on the far left side of the GPS, we should be really close to downtown Pittsburgh, so you can see all of the sights there. See, this is why eventually I would love to be able to take a flight with Pittsburgh helis, and I'm probably going to link them in the video description as well, and maybe tell them about this little chill video. But yeah, I'd love to be able to see all of this in real life and compare it, and then I guess send it to a Sobo and be like, this is what Pittsburgh is supposed to look like. fix it. Especially these trees. Oi. Really? Really, Asobo? Trees? And I don't even know that I can blame the third-party add-on that I have that's changing these trees, because I'm pretty certain if I were in default, I would still see trees there. All it does is take whatever Asobo trees are there and replaces them with appropriate trees of the proper color and type. That's all it does. That's really all it does. So I'm going to blame Asobo on this one. Asobo, it's your fault that my bridges have trees on them. Although it does kind of sound like a Pittsburgh thing. I mean, we do, after all, put French fries on top of our burgers. Don't ask. You'd have to be in a Permanis to get it. And people do love their Permanis here. I, however, do not. I don't like fries on my burger. I also don't like coleslaw, which is the other thing that Permanis is famous for. I know, I'm just weird. What can I say? Alright, so we got another curve in a river coming up, so let's go back to the outside view really quick. And looks like we got another dam bridge. I want to say this is Homestead. Yes, this is definitely Homestead. I recognize the buildings. So these buildings are all shopping malls. And my favorite movie theater, where I watch all of the Star Wars movies that have come out in like the last 10 years. That's over here as well. You can see the little smokestacks. Those smokestacks are non-functional, but they're pretty much a trademark of this area, as is the Homestead Bridge, which is this right here. The movie theater is that massive building right there with a funky looking entrance. That's our movie theater. Homestead on the waterfront. And they do have like big screen, 3D, IMAX, all that good jazz. It's all there, and it's really cool. Really, really cool. So I'm glad they got that right. Yay for photogrammetry, not so much for the bridges. All right, but let's go ahead and go back to the outside view as we meander our way down the Mon. An interesting little tidbit about these three rivers. They are notorious for changing colors depending on what season it is. So oftentimes we'll get like mudslides or flooding, stuff that will basically kick up a lot of mud and silt in the rivers, and the rivers will actually turn brown. But not all the rivers. Usually the Monongahela will turn brown. The Allegheny River, which comes from the north, we are actually coming from the south right now, like we're pointing towards the north or almost that way. But the Allegheny typically will have a greenish color, so pretty much what this looks like right now. Half of the year the Mon will look like this, the other half the Mon looks brown. And an interesting thing happens when they hit downtown Pittsburgh. The two rivers, of course, meet up to form the Ohio, but the colors don't merge. So you'll have like one half of the river that's brown and the other half of the river is green, and it's really cool to see. I'll see if I can find a picture and I'll put it up like right now so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. But when it happens, it is really neat looking to see in person. It's like the two rivers become one, but they don't actually become one. It's weird. It's so weird. All right, so we're closing in on downtown Pittsburgh, and I'm going to point out some key structures here. So we're getting close to what they call South Side. And this is the South Side area here off to my left. lot of nightclubs there that I have played in the past with the various bands that I've been in. That tall building that you're seeing there is called the Cathedral of Learning. So we got University of Pittsburgh over there, Penn State, all them good places. Well, I'm not so sure about Penn State. I think just UPitt. Carnegie Mellon University is also over there. And we also have like our butterfly place and so on and so forth, little butterfly conservatory. All of that's in that neck of the woods. This is Southside. We've got another cinema there. It's not as impressive as the one in Homestead that I just showed you, but this is Southside. Southside has its own charm to it. My favorite restaurant in all of Pittsburgh is here as well. It's called Majorca. It is a Spanish restaurant, but they've got some of the best seafood ever. This is like my date restaurant. If I take you to Majorca, expect that I'm going to drop at least $100 on dinner and drinks. And they've got the best sangria as well. Alright, so we will pass by a bridge here. The bridge shapes are correct. The colors are also correct. The only thing I don't like is the fact that they're solid objects and basically just pictures of the bridge instead of 3D objects that I can fly under. But yeah, this is Southside. This is definitely Southside. So many fond memories of this area. Like I said, there are many nightclubs in this area. One of the key ones that comes to mind is the Rex Theater, which, as the name would imply, used to be an actual theater, but it became a nightclub. Loved playing there. The acoustics were great. And there also used to be a place called Nick's Fat City. It's no longer there. It's now called something else. I think it's just like a dance club now. But that was another place that I really enjoyed playing. Directly ahead, we've got the downtown area. Oh, this building I should probably call out. So notice the tiny, tiny windows. There's a reason for that. We call that the Allegheny Hotel. That's the prison. If you are a bad boy, you will get locked up there. That's county lockup. Up there is Mount Washington, and down there is Station Square. Station Square is kind of like a tourist trap, so we've got little river boats that you're seeing directly ahead. The Pittsburgh Clipper, Gateway Clipper, all of that stuff. And they will typically ferry people up and down the river for dinner cruises. And Station Square, of course, right there has a bunch of really nice restaurants. And there's also the incline, which will take you up the hill to Mount Washington, which is what we're looking at up there. You want to get the absolute best view of Pittsburgh, you want to go up to Mount Washington. In fact, I'm going to show you in a moment. This is, of course, downtown Pittsburgh, the infamous area known as the Point. And there is Fort Pitt, or at least the remnants of it. That's where Pittsburgh got its name. There's our fountain. I could really use some fountain, I guess, effects. That would be nice. But yeah, these are where the two rivers meet. So just to remind you, we got the Monongahela River in that way, and we've got the Allegheny River that way, and they meet and form and call themselves the Ohio River. That is our museum, Carnegie Science Museum. I actually spent the night there with my son one time. They were having a robot and droid exhibit. You can see we've even got a little submarine, a World War II vintage submarine in front. That is really there. That is actually there. But we had the robot display there, and they actually allowed all the parents with kids to spend the night there. So we actually camped out inside the museum next to C-3PO and R2-D2. And of course, my son was in hog heaven. He loved it. We got a casino. If you look directly behind the compass there, that is the Rivers Casino. That is recently built, like within the last 6 or 7 years or so. And that's a pretty popular place here in downtown Pittsburgh. But the single most popular place that you are going to find in Pittsburgh is this place right here. Anybody know what this is? Shout out in the comments. I'm going to tell you anyway. That is Heinz Field. Heinz Field is, of course, the home of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they absolutely nailed this with the photogrammetry. This is exactly what Heinz Field looks like. So I've been there a few times to watch Steeler games and to watch Pitt games, University of Pittsburgh. You notice the little ramp that goes under the road there. There's a purpose for that ramp. So the little clipper that I showed you before, the riverboats that are on the south side there over by Station Square, you can actually get in one of those riverboats and it'll go under the Fort Pitt Bridge that we're looking at right here, and it'll eventually spit you out over by Heinz Field so you can go to the Steeler game. And it's a really fun way if you have somebody with you that's never seen the Steeler games before. It's a cool way of introducing them to Heinz Field. You get on the boat, you have some drinks while you're on the boat, it'll take you directly to Heinz Field, and then you come off and go watch the Steeler games. And then, of course, reverse direction on your way back to Station Square in your parked car. Now, this stadium here is PNC Park, home of the Pittsburgh Pirates. That is our baseball team, our national baseball team. Another place that I have been to, this is a really cool place because they do fireworks every time there's a game going on. So it's really awesome. And of course you get a pretty commanding view of the Roberto Clemente Bridge, which right now doesn't look all that good in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It looks like they're flooding out. But one of the cool things about this bridge is similar to some of the bridges that you hear about in like Paris and other places, they put locks on the bridge. Like couples and whatnot will put locks all over the Roberto Clemente Bridge, and you can see that. And that's our convention center there with a sloped roof, and this is downtown Pittsburgh. So there's a ton of different buildings. I don't know the names of all of them, even though I've lived in this place for over 10 years now. I can recognize like the Highmark building, which is that one there with the pointy top, the single point I should say, because the other building that has the castle looking top, it's got the 4 points there, that is the PPG Tower. Now you're probably wondering, well, what the heck is PPG? What's their claim to fame? PPG makes glass. So for example, your auto glass and your airplane glass, this is the company that makes them. So naturally you would expect that their headquarters building is pretty much all glass, and it looks like a castle. And just behind it, you'll see that little courtyard area there. There is a fountain there that in the winter they turn into an ice rink, a public ice rink. So you can actually just go ice skating in public. And it's kind of cool. I like it. I don't go ice skating myself, but it is cool to show people that are not familiar with Pittsburgh some of the cool things that we have here. Alright, so there is Mount Washington again. You can see one of the tunnels. That is the Liberty Tunnel going underneath Mount Washington. And then the more famous Fort Pitt Tunnel, which spits you out onto the Fort Pitt Bridge. I'm going to post a picture of a meme, a popular meme in Pittsburgh right now. And that was taken on this bridge. And that's pretty accurate. You can see the amount of space that we've got there. And you got to decide whether you want to go left or right or straight into downtown the moment you come out of that tunnel, out of the Fort Pitt Tunnel. So yeah, it's a pain in the butt. Anybody who lives here and has ever had to drive that road knows exactly what I'm talking about. Alright, so here we are at Mount Washington again. I don't want to get into VRS, so I'm going to push forward, get out of my own rotor downwash. Mount Washington's also got some excellent restaurants, so I highly recommend it. Like I said, this is the best view in the house. I'm going to try and see if I can turn this around without hitting that building. If you ever visit Pittsburgh, make sure you come up here to Mount Washington, and this is the view that will greet you. So they've got little lookout points that you can just stand on, and you can just take a whole bunch of pictures of this area, and it's so awesome to see. It's really cool. Alright, let's push forward here. Need to watch my manifold pressure while I'm talking to you. Mount Washington also is one of the more expensive places to live in Pittsburgh. So if you do decide to come here, just be advised, it is not cheap. Not cheap at all. Let me gain some more forward airspeed here. That's our soccer field. I think they're called the Pittsburgh River Rats. I don't know much about them because I don't really follow soccer, but that's where they play. And that's the hotel. Well, you can tell by the side. The river boats with water on top of them. All right, Asobo. I know you can improve on this, so please do. That would be awesome. I'm going to give her a little bit more collective, and we'll get some more forward speed going, see if we can get over Mount Washington. There's a really expensive restaurant in the bottom of this building here, and I mean really expensive. Like one of those places that you've got to dress up in suit and tie if you want to go in there. But I have been in there, and I do recommend their food. It is awesome. It's just really expensive, even more so than Majorca. Although I do prefer Majorca, just between you and I. All right, so we got north side over there. That's what they call that area. Pretty logical, right? It's on the northern side of the three rivers, so it would make sense that they call it north side. And we are going to swing around to the left, so let me drop our collective a little bit here. I'm going to try and see if I can find my house. So over the Science Museum, there's also Stage AE in this area, which is another really cool place to play if you are a musician. And in fact, that's where I saw both Slayer as well as Megadeth. Slayer also had Anthrax and Death Angel with them. Megadeth had Meshuggah and a couple other bands whose names I forget. But yeah, I saw them here. And we are going to follow the highway south. And like I said, we're going to see if I can find my house. So let me keep us at 85% on the collective. And I know this road well. Oh boy. I know this area well. When I used to work downtown, I used to shortcut by coming through these roads here instead of taking the highway, because oftentimes the highway was just plain old backed up. Alright, so we are looking for the Parkway, as we call it. The Parkway is I-376. And it kind of runs north to south. It cuts through the hills and goes into Fort Pitt Tunnel, which you can see the back end of Mount Washington there. This is pretty much the start of 376, so it's just coming out of the tunnel right here. And we're going to go right and follow 376 up the hill. We're going to get to my exit, Green Tree. That building right there, that's one of the buildings that I used to work in. Not the really tall one, but the shorter one that's in front of it. Give us a little bit more collective. There's Banksville Road. We could take Banksville Road to get to where I live. Prefer to take the Parkway though, because it's just the more familiar route to me. It's the route that I take most often. Alright, so there's Giant Eagle, or as the locals say, Giant Eagle. That's our main grocery store in the area. There's my old workplace, the brown building with the white top. It's not where I currently work, but that's where I used to work. And this is Green Tree Hill. So you see that golden looking building? It's actually mirrored. That is where one of our radio stations is, WDVT. And I point that out because one of the bands that I was in, we actually got to go there and perform live. So we were on the radio in that building. We're going to go down Green Tree Road here. This is the main road in my neighborhood. And I'm going to look for Potomac, which comes off kind of like at a Y. course, these trees are a little too aggressive here. That's really not what it's like. I mean, it is, but it isn't. All right, so we are getting close to the area. Okay, there's the church, so we should be pretty close. Pretty close. And there's the apartment buildings. Okay, so we're going too far now. Alright, right now we are above my neighborhood. I'm just looking for the correct street, so McMonagle is what I'm looking for there. Yep, we're pretty much around by my house. We're actually flying over my house. I'm going to turn us around and see if I can get us a better view. So that's McMonagle there. And there should be a road that shoots off to the left. Yep, I'm flying over it right now. Don't let it fool you, folks. That road is a lot steeper than it looks in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Let me just tell you, in the wintertime, going up or down that road is a pain in the butt. But you figure it's also snow covered. And even though they do plow, people do park along that street. It's bad. It's really bad. All right, but I'm going to show you my house. This is my house, and it does look like my house. The roof matches, the backyard matches. They've even got the apple tree all the way in the back. So, point of reference, you are looking at the corner of that street. You see that corner lot that's got all that grass to the right-hand side of it? That's my house. That is my house. You can't see it right now because the helicopter's in the way, but I'm trying not to get us into vortex ring state, but I'm also trying to descend here. All right, now you can see it directly over the body. There's my neighbor off to the left on your screen. I've got trees in the front. Those are maple trees. But yeah, that is my house. Right at the intersection there. So where that yellow car just came from, that is my house. They nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. The only thing they didn't get was a patio deck in the back. But they got the apple tree, so I'm okay with that. The apple tree is in the back, way up the back, and I have to cut that lawn. Typically, I'll have my brother do it because, let's face it, I don't like cutting that lawn. It is at a steep angle. I don't like cutting that lawn at all. That's my house. That is where I am recording from right now. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So, if you ever wondered if Asobo's claim was correct that you can find your house, I can confirm I do find my house. And it is exactly where I think it should be. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed that. Alright, we need to find an airport to land at because we've been flying for quite some time now, and even though we're only on half a tank of gas, I really don't want this to be too long of a video. It's just meant to be like a chill video. So an introduction, if you will, to this helicopter. Oh, by the way, this stadium that we're passing there is one of the high school stadiums. This time of the year, they do have a lot of football games going on. But it's also famous because this is where we go to watch our fireworks for 4th of July. You can go downtown to the Mount Washington area that I showed you earlier. They do have our major Pittsburgh fireworks displayed there. However, since I don't like traveling, I can just go out my front door and check out the fireworks at that high school or that stadium. This is the Dormont area. A lot of classic buildings here, mostly churches and so on. But one of the things that I do enjoy is the fact that they absolutely nailed the look of Pittsburgh. This is pretty much what it looks like. This is very much so what it looks like. They actually got the shape of my house correct and everything. So yeah, if you are from this area and you have Microsoft Flight Simulator, I would highly encourage you to fly around and find your house. You will be able to do it. Unless, of course, your house is like brand spanking new. because I think the orthophoto that they're using is about a year or two old. So it may not have all the current things in there, but it will have a lot. All right, I'm thinking we should probably go to Allegheny. So we're going to go back to the outside view because I've been talking a while, and I'm going to point myself more towards Allegheny Airport, and we'll see if we can bring her in. All right, let's see where we're at. Now I can't really take my hands off the cyclic and collective, so I really don't want to like hit the GPS and zoom it out a little bit so I can see where I'm going. But one thing you may notice, I am fighting the wind right now. I do have it set to real weather, and it is a little windy. It has been a little windy all week, so this is not like a bug with the flight model of this helicopter. This is really what the conditions are like. And I'm pretty sure if I were to look outside and see some of the Robbies flying around, they would probably also be doing this translating tendency thing. Incidentally, Pittsburgh International Airport is off in that direction, K-Pitt, as we call it. It's kind of difficult to see because it's way past the city. It's about 7 miles west of the city, roughly. Might be a little bit more than that. But yeah, so we won't be going there today. We're going to go to the original major airport for the Pittsburgh area, and that is, of course, Allegheny Airport. I'm just trying to lose a little bit of altitude here. And remember, the thing is, as you give this thing more collective, you're probably going to need to add more pedal because of the torque. So it's a little bit of a balancing act that you have to have with this helicopter. But we are at least heading in the right direction, so I'm okay with that. Now, I don't think we're actually heading to Allegheny. I want to say Allegheny's probably closer to that side. So we may be heading back to Finleyville, which I'm okay with anyway, because that's where we started from. So if that is in fact the case, then that's fine. Now we're going a little too fast, so we'll put it back down to 85%. Yeah, I'm going to come off the pedal and see if we stabilize here. Surprise, surprise, we actually do stabilize a bit. Now that might be a quirk with the Airland system. Not 100% certain, and I'm not 100% sold on that, but at least I can still fly us. So that part I'm okay with. So the area that we're in, they call South Hills, again, is pretty much Pittsburgh. Everything is cardinal directions. So you've got like East Stroudsburg or East Pittsburgh, you've got South Hills, you've got North Hills, South Side, and so on, West End. There's a lot of cardinal directions in this area. And then there's where I live, Green Tree, which is odd because the road that I live on is called Red Oak. And there are no oaks on that road, by the way. None of them are red either. You saw the trees I have. I have maple trees and apple trees, that's about it. And one willow tree, which I think is actually on the next door neighbors. Alright, pretty sure we are heading to Finleyville because I see the river right there. And I see the quarry up ahead. So I'm I'm going to pull us up just a touch here. We are going to lose a little bit of forward airspeed, but that's okay. I'd rather we not descend much more because the winds coming off the ground are going to get a little fierce. This time of the day, which is morning time, we can expect as temperatures go up, which it's kind of cold here today, but I do expect temperatures to rise a little bit, especially since we've got this hazy type of sky. As the sun gets higher, the clouds will dissipate a bit. And when the temperature comes up, the thermals and whatnot rising from the ground does create a little bit of turbulence over this area. Alright, so I'm going to point towards the quarry directly ahead. And I think you can start to see the hangars over at Finleyville, so we're heading in the right direction. You can now see it on the GPS. So yeah, good deal, good deal. Alright, so since we're coming in, I do hope that you have enjoyed my little tour of my home area. Like I said, this is not intended to be a full review video for this helicopter. That's why I'm doing it as a chill video. No theme song or, you know, any of that stuff that I normally would put in a Microsoft Flight Simulator video. I just want to kind of show the area and in a relaxed way show off the helicopter as well. And as you have seen, judging from the fact that I'm able to fly and talk at the same time, it's pretty easy to fly. If you're a newbie, you're probably going to be learning on a helicopter like this in real life anyway, so it's true to life in that regard. But as far as flying this thing, the flight model, like I said, I have that set to 100% realism, so this is pretty much as real as it gets according to Airland. And it flies how I expect a Robbie would fly. I also mentioned I do not have any real-world experience with this helicopter, so I cannot say for 100% fact that this is exactly what a Robbie flies like, but this is what I imagine a Robbie should feel like. And I'm okay with this. I'm very much okay with this. The only things that I have to compare it to are X-Plane and Aerofly FS2, both of which have Robinsons. Not by default, well, at least Aerofly by default, but for X-Plane there's an add-on Robinson by V-Sky Labs, who is a developer that I really admire. And they all fly the same as this, so that speaks very highly to what Airland is trying to do. I would say that they were able to pull this off. And more so, RotorSimPilot and the crew that RotorSimPilot has putting this thing together. I think it really speaks volumes for their abilities as developers as well. But I think it speaks also to Airland as the underlying flight model that this thing is using. So my purple hat goes off to both parties. And also to HeliSimmer for being the Helico Mafia that kind of gets all these people together to start working on helicopters. Now if you could just do your magic on a Sobo and have them make it so that Airland is a functional part of this sim and required for all helicopters, then yeah, we'll all be good. By the way, if anyone's thinking of making a CH-47 Chinook, please let me know. I will gladly hype the heck out of that. You may have noticed on this channel I have not shown you the hype Airbus 135 or 145. It's not that I have anything against Hype Performance Group or Hype Media Group or whatever they're calling themselves now. I always get that confused. I don't have anything against them. They are great budding developers. They just make helicopters I have no desire to fly. I've only shown an Airbus H135 once, and that was in Aerofly FS2. I just simply don't like those helicopters, so that's why you haven't seen it. It's not because I think they're doing a bad job or I think you shouldn't use their products or anything like that. Absolutely not. It's just because it's not my cup of tea. And I am notorious for only flying what I want to fly. Robbies, I've always wanted to fly, so that's why this one's getting a look. And that's also why you saw the Bell 47, because I grew up watching MASH, and I remember that helicopter appearing on TV. It's something that I've always wanted to fly. And same for military helicopters like the Chinook and so on. Anybody that brings a Chinook to Microsoft Flight Simulator, I can pretty much guarantee you I'm going to give it at least one look. If it's really good, you might see it regularly. All right, we are down. There's the marshallers. All right, Kara, that was an excellent flight. We really didn't have much for you to do in the way of contacting ATC, but I appreciate your presence always. As a quick note, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I will mention it again if I have not mentioned it before. RotorSimPilot, you are currently referencing the wrong model. You are referencing the pilot in charge model, the person who typically sits in the left seat. This is a helicopter. As you well know, the pilot in command sits in the right seat. So, we need to find a way to have it reference the co-pilot model, the right-seater, as opposed to the left-seater. Because I had to physically change my pilot model to be the one that I call Kara, because by default it shows the pilot in command, which is a black dude, the pilot that I use for me. And additionally, when you go to the outside view, just kind of rotate our way to the front here. You will notice from the outside that you cannot see a pilot at all. You just see the co-pilot. So yeah, stuff to work on. But overall, I really love this helicopter. I know it's in alpha, I know it's only 8% complete, yada yada yada, but for what they have done so far, this is huge. I thoroughly enjoy this. Audio can be worked on, systems can be worked on, stuff like the pilot / co-pilot can be worked on, and I'm sure they will. But this is a really good starting place. So while this is not an official review, this one still gets 2 thumbs up from me. So thank you. I'm very glad that I downloaded this. Alright, I'm not going to worry about turning everything off because we know what's going to happen when I do that, and I still hate that little pop-up thing that pops up to tell you your flight log. So that'll do it for me. I'm going to end the chill video now. Thanks for watching as always. If you enjoy what you've seen, feel free to give me a like. If you haven't subscribed yet, well, feel free to do so. And I hope you enjoyed my little look of my home area. And now, I'm going to take a break and go outside my house and see if I can see some real Robbies flying around. Alrighty folks, I'll talk to you all soon. Ciao.